Hi, Keith.
Hey, Cheryl, how are you?
I'm good. I am on a borrowed computer, so I don't have a camera, so I will be off camera.
That's fine.
All right.
We seem to have a lot of people on borrowed cameras all of a sudden because everybody's getting their computers updated.
Yes.
Hey, Tracy, how are you?
Hi, Keith. How are you?
Doing well.
All ready for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, pretty much. Nice. I have all three of my kids that still live in Connecticut, so
Yep.
get to
Yeah,
be around all of them.
Yeah, both of my kids are in Connecticut, and all three granddaughters too. So I'll get to be with all of them Thanksgiving. So that's nice.
Yeah, me too.
And better yet, it's at my daughter's, so I don't have to cook. I just have to show up with my dish.
Same with me. I was telling my wife, I go, this is the first time I haven't cooked a turkey since I can remember.
Yep. I like it when my daughter was having her second daughter. I suggested she take over the holidays and make people come to her since she had the kids to look around, so I don't have to do Christmas either.
There you go.
Yep. Hi, Mary Pat.
Hi, Trace. How are you?
Good.
That's good. Staying out of trouble?
Of course not.
It's no fun if you stay out of trouble.
That's right.
Tracy, I actually have to say, this is Cheryl Ellis. I love your dragonfly earrings.
Oh, thank you. They're my thing. Dragonflies.
No, I love them.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Gunnar.
Hi, Gunnar.
Hi, Dr. Ellis. How are you?
I'm doing
Hey,
well. And yourself?
I'm doing all right. Hey, Rebecca.
Hi, Gunnar. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So we'll give it a couple more minutes as folks continue to join, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, Wynn.
Hey,
Okay,
everybody.
It does look like.
Hey,
What's that, Michael?
No,
Drive safely, Michael.
I'm in my car today, so I'll be on mute for a while.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for letting us know.
So, Michael, are you traveling for Thanksgiving? Is that why you're in your car?
I'm picking up my in-laws at Westchester Airport. So
Oh, have fun.
thanks.
All right, so it's 1:31. I think we can go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gunnar Abrahamson. I am new to the ARPA Advisory Committee meeting. For those of you who I've not spoken with, I have been with the department just about 2 years now. I have recently transitioned from a role as the Commissioner's Executive Secretary to one of the new ARPA project managers for the agency. So I've had the pleasure to work alongside our former Deputy Commissioner, Peter Mason, our former South Region IFS Director, Greg McMahon, and the former private provider himself, Keith Lavalette. So kind of learning the ropes here. I've been heavily involved in STEP and ARPA for some time. And I'm excited to kind of take over facilitation of this advisory committee as we move into the latter half of the ARPA period. Peter will be assisting me as I, again, kind of learn the ropes of how this meeting usually flows. I do have a number of updates for you today, and I know we have some other folks on the call that will review some of the work that's happening here at DDS. Before we kind of dive in and look at the meeting minutes from our previous meeting, I do want to pass it over to Keith Lavalette, who's going to review some of the public meeting requirements. Keith.
Thank you, Gunnar. The meetings of the ARPA Advisory Transformation Committee are public meetings as defined by the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act and should follow these guidelines. As a public meeting is held virtually, it will be recorded and made available to view on the DDS website. Committee members must make a good faith effort to state their name and title if applicable each time they speak during the meeting. If a committee member would like to speak, please raise your hand and one of the co-chairs will acknowledge you. There is no public comment portion to this meeting. Members of the public are able to join, watch, and listen only.
Thank you, Keith. All right, so we'll move to our next agenda item. That is the approval of the October meeting minutes. I think you all have had a chance to review those as Keith sent them out about a few days ago. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes from October?
So moved. This is Tracy Walker from Journey Found.
Second,
Second
This-
comes from Shannon
Shannon
Giacovino.
Giacovino, DDS ombudsperson.
This is Gunnar Abrahamson, DDS. We have approved the minutes from October. At this time, we will move into our next agenda item.
You have to take the vote.
And Peter, what does that entail? Do I say all those in favor signify by saying aye?
Yep.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Right, looks like we have approval of the minutes. See, I wasn't lying when I said I'm still learning the ropes. So we will move now into our next agenda item. I have had the pleasure over the last 3 months to work alongside Sarah, one of our OTG fellows who we've been fortunate to share with DAS. Sarah has played an intricate role in helping us interpret and send out a lot of the data associated with our ARPA initiative. And she is joined today by Joanna Wong, who is one of our research analysts. Both of them have been doing a fantastic job in data interpretation and kind of moving this whole ARPA initiative forward. So I'll turn it over to them. I know they have some updates for the group. So Sarah and Joanna.
Hi, Sarah Olominick, Research Fellow at DDS. I've been on board doing outcomes evaluation and performance measurement with the ARPA project since April. Joanna, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, my name is Joanna Wang. I work with BI DDS team and since April as well. Yeah, glad to meet you, everyone here.
Great. So again, Sarah Olominick at DDS. We're just going to walk through some general updates of how we've been kind of looking at performance and evaluation for the various ARPA initiatives, give you a sense of what kind of metrics we're collecting and where those initiatives stand right now. We've been working in collaboration with the project leads across the various initiatives. A lot of different folks have been involved on the data gathering and collection side. So the work you're about to see is really a product of a great deal of teamwork and collaboration from across the agency and the different folks involved in these various initiatives. And so Joanna and I have sort of been tag teaming the work of pulling this all together into a central tool where we can see how we're performing. All right. Can everyone see this spreadsheet up on my screen? Is that screen share working okay? Great. So just to give you a quick overview before we go through the tool, broadly, we've been talking about this effort as sort of the ARPA before and after, thinking about where were we before all of these initiatives began and where are we hoping to be after all of these initiatives have kind of wrapped up. And so as you all know, there's a variety of components to this. And so they've been sorted here more for convenience than anything else into 4 a little bit more bite-sized buckets. So there's kind of this transforming service bucket that includes things like supportive housing and systems transformation. So all of the transformation plans would fall into that category. There's also this technology for independence, which has a whole range of initiatives in there. Everything from like the assistive technology, where you're providing grants to get assistive technology to individuals, and that also includes the employment network that we're running through Rewarding Work, and a variety of other technology through independence related initiatives. Under the supporting providers bucket, you have those initiatives that focused a lot more on kind of direct support to providers. So those stabilization and workforce incentive payments, also the incentives for completing the NCI State of the Workforce Survey, the job coach training, payment incentives, all of those are under that bucket. And then that 4th one, improving internal operations, is just a handful of those initiatives that really focus on the landscape internally at DDS and making sure that we're performing at the highest level possible. So I'm going to just kind of walk you through that. It's divided into 4 tabs in alignment with those 4 categories. I know there's a lot on the screen, so we'll kind of tackle this piece by piece. First of all, I know that it can get a little strange with the screen share. Is the text readable, or does it need to be a little bit larger?
Larger.
A little bit larger, okay. How is that? Better, or still a little bigger?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, great. So this title here is just kind of that transforming service category. We'll just kind of go through the columns quickly. So here are both kind of listing what the initiative is, and then there's some sort of names of metrics. This next column over here is a baseline value. In most cases, that's 0 because we hadn't, before these initiatives started, we were at 0 for these various things. Then there's this sort of current value, and right now that's set at the first quarter of fiscal year 2023. So as of September 30 is when we're looking at a lot of these numbers. And we're planning to update this quarterly. So in about a month from now, we'll be gathering together Q2 numbers, and we'll be able to see a little bit more kind of that progress over time. When applicable, we have goals set. So for some of these initiatives, we knew going in, in the case of supportive housing, that we wanted to have 100 individuals transition. That's not going to be the case for every single metric that we're tracking, but whenever there is a goal, we've listed it in this column. And then there's a status tab. Sometimes it's a, % of the way towards completing our goal. Sometimes it's as simple as in progress or met, but you'll see that on all of these metrics. There's a little bit of a longer description. Sometimes this shorter description doesn't quite explain as clearly what exactly that number represents. And then you have sort of what was the baseline period that we're comparing against for supportive housing. It happens that we're looking at now versus June of 2022, whereas systems transformation didn't start until a little bit later. So we're comparing it to values more from like April of 2023. And then there's also this data source line. We thought it was really important because, there's just a lot of information connected to all of these initiatives. So to make sure that we're staying as transparent and replicable as possible, we're tracking kind of where are these pieces of information coming from, so that if numbers here don't match with the numbers somewhere else, we can try to untangle that a little bit. So hopefully that's a good overview of the general columns. I'm just going to show you what this looks like in the case of supportive housing, because I think it's an easy one to digest. So what you're seeing right now is sort of a summary view. You have kind of these primary outcomes. We're still working on budget numbers because I know there have been some shifts there, but you have kind of these 2 identified primary outcomes. The first one is DDS supported individuals who are in LIHTC supportive housing, and we have a goal of that of 100. And as of that September 30 date, we had about 31 folks who had made that switch. So that puts us 31% of the way towards our goal. But we also wanted to capture that you know, within supportive housing, there's a long timeline between when those projects maybe get approved and when you actually see folks moving into supportive housing. So we also are tracking, you know, projected individuals who we expect will be in this kind of supportive housing by the end of the ARPA period. And again, as of that September 30th date, we had already kind of committed to projects that would allow 127 individuals to move into supportive housing by that time. And so as you can see, that's well above 100% of our goal. And so it looks like supportive housing is well on track to be meeting the targets that were set at the start of the ARPA period. You'll also see a line here, additional performance indicators. And I mentioned this was a summary view. And so if we just kind of unhide that, for a lot of these initiatives, there's other things that we're also tracking because project leads or other people who are closely involved, you know, with these initiatives have said that, oh, this is something additional we should be tracking. Either it helps us tell the story a little bit better of what's going on or kind of why we are where we are. And so in this case, for supportive housing, we're sort of breaking it out by project-based and non-project-based locations, and also a specific tracker of kind of locations that are committed but are not quite finished yet. So you can see those numbers broken down bit more detail. For some initiatives, there's also this line of future metrics, which are things that we're hoping to track, but either we're still kind of waiting on some data developments to be able to pull those all together, or it just hasn't quite been long enough to get our first values for that, as in the case of something like, you know, a 6-month retention rate. We want to know after a while how many folks are staying in supportive housing after 6 months, as kind of an indicator of whether that's a good fit for them in the long run. So that's just sort of a general walkthrough of how that looks in supportive housing. I'm going to take you through some of the other initiatives just so you get a sense of where we're at. Systems transformation, obviously a very complex one, a lot of moving pieces, but also looking very promising. So you can see in terms of our primary outcomes here, we've got 13 transition plans approved. And if you look at sort of the individual transitions within those plans, so far we've got 71 folks approved to move within day and 37 folks approved to move within residential transitions. And so that's a little over a third of the way towards our goals in both of those categories. Now there's some other plans pending approval, and if you look at those numbers, we're even closer towards meeting those goals. And we may dig into that a little bit more later on. But I did just want to mention that. And then you can also see that we're tracking, you know, programs restructured, total transitions that have been initiated, completed transitions. Eventually, we'll be looking at retained transitions, so 6 months after the individual moved. We know that they've received the incentive, but did they stay? Did it seem like that new setting was a good fit for them in the longer run? There have also been requests from various stakeholders to make sure that we're thinking about other pieces of this. So in addition to kind of breaking it out by day and res for restructuring, we're tracking a lot of demographic information as well. So the numbers that you're seeing here, Joanna has been really helpful in kind of the data piece of this, show you the share of individuals who are included in a transition plan. So this includes folks who have not yet made that move, and so things could still change. But as of now, the composition of the transition plans has about 37% female, with the remainder being listed as male. And then you can kind of see the age breakdown as well. Most of the folks transitioning are between 26 and 40 years of age. We also are tracking kind of the breakdown by race and ethnicity of folks transitioning as well. So I know that there have been requests to make sure that we're just sort of staying on top of that and monitoring that. And so I wanted to note that that's also being tracked. And as folks change and transitions happen, we'll be watching that. I think those are probably the biggest takeaways on systems transformation. Any burning questions right at that moment? I know that that's just a really complex initiative, and so there may be something on folks' minds. Okay, perfect. We will carry on. Independence through technology. So you can see kind of the provider technology training outcome payments, assistive technology. We've got line items that we've been tracking through sort of the NOOs that are getting assistive technology directly to individuals and also directly to providers. So we're kind of tracking both elements of that. We're looking at the employment network. There was a great ratio of job applicants to job postings at Rewarding Work, and I know that they're working on continuing to improve the metrics that are available for us to track and the kinds of reporting we can do. So that will continue to be updated here as well. And then there's also some elements under enhancing workforce, kind of operating the call center, and also completion of electronic SDSAs. Some of those have had some logistical issues and are a little bit further behind from where we thought we would be. So I know that they've been doing some adjustments to those timelines. For supporting providers, I think some folks may know that we also sent out sort of specific to the infrastructure through technology and the workforce stability incentive initiatives. There were surveys that were sent out to providers to try to assess, how are these initiatives doing at meeting needs, and what was kind of the outcome of those funds being spent. And so there's some initial results here. We're hoping to do some additional analysis in combination with the quarterly reporting that's being sent in. But you can see that in general, we're aiming for 100% satisfaction. For the most part, folks were really satisfied with the infrastructure through technology payments that went out. It's a good sign. It seems like that was a step in the right direction. And there's also been some data on the workforce stability incentive as well. That one's a little bit murkier. I think we're going to need to do some work kind of combining with existing quarterly reports before we really have a clear story of how that initiative is looking. But it does look like average vacancy rate was relatively consistent. And so it could be that that's a great sign that it didn't get a lot worse from the baseline to where we are. It's difficult to know what the counterfactual would be had these initiatives not been in place. And then finally, we'll just do a quick look at the initiatives that are kind of improving internal operations. So the NCI participant survey met their goal of getting over 600 surveys completed, which was great. It sounds like administering through UConn was a great decision and improved outcomes in a lot of ways. For case and care management, we're well on track, kind of moving through those steps of evaluating and eventually hopefully purchasing a new system. Critical incident has made some important steps forward as well, and then the universal assessment is still in progress. Yeah, so that's kind of the overview. Gunnar, would you like me to go into the summary of approved transition plans and pending plans as well, or is that slotted for later?
This is Gunnar Abrahamson from DDS. Sarah, I think that is next on the agenda. So if you'd like, let me just make sure I'm correct here. Yep, that is next on the agenda. So what I was going to do is pull that up and start to review that. And I would appreciate it if you could participate in that conversation if there's anything that I overlook when we discuss that.
Sounds good.
Again, Gunnar from DDS. Does anyone have any questions for Sarah or Joanna while we move into our next agenda item? All right, hearing none, we will move into reviewing approved and submitted transformation plans that the department has received. I'll go ahead and share my screen here. Can everybody see this okay?
Nope. It's black.
It's black.
It is black. Okay, that's never good.
There it is.
Stop.
It's up now.
All right. Sometimes it just takes a little bit to get up there. So I'll go over this. I know there's a lot going on in this sheet, but this is more or less the way that we've been keeping track outside of some of the shared folders in our drives as to what transformation plans have been submitted to the department for approval, what plans have been approved, what plans are pending. It also allows us to get an idea of the number of individuals that are encompassed within these plans, and then the steps that we are making towards meeting our targets. We had targeted initially 200 individuals transitioning from day programs into out of congregate day settings into more community-based day supports. And on the residential side, we had targeted 100 individuals moving out of residential congregate supports to more residentially community-based supports. So as Sarah mentioned previously, we have currently 13 approved plans. Those are the plans that you'll see here. There are a number, and I believe the number was evenly split across the board. We have an equal number of day plans to residential plans. We were somewhat stagnant there for a little bit in terms of receiving additional plans for review and approval by the department. It has only been within the last 4 weeks that we received 5 additional plans. So that number has climbed from 13 plans approved by the department to 19 plans, with 5 of those pending approval. We are excited about the number of plans that we've received recently. As you'll see here, there are quite a few individuals encompassed within these plans. One of the largest incorporated 40 individuals who will be transitioning out of congregate day settings into more community-based day supports. When we look at some of the specifics for these already approved plans, and Sarah made mention of this in her report earlier, for the approved total for individuals identified in those 13-day plans, there are 71. For the individuals identified in the residential plans, that stands at 37. So with the 13 approved plans, we're about 37% of the way there to that 100% goal. With the day plans, we're about 35% of the way there. If you look at the 5 plans that the department recently received that kind of bolster our numbers here, that puts us upwards of 86% towards our 200 transition target. For residential, that puts us at about 55% of that 100 transition target. So we're super excited about that. And I will make mention that while there have maybe been some modifications or additional work done to some of the approved plans by the department, we fully expect the plans that are pending approval to work their way through the system. And, we are excited about where that puts us in terms of our goal. The dollar amount that was allocated to the STEP incentives through this initiative stood at $24,300,000. If you look at the 13 approved plans, that number of money allocated for incentives tied up in those plans stands at $8,727,000, which puts us at about 35% towards our 100% target. If these 5 pending plans that are with the regional review committees for review and approval are approved, that bumps that $8 million number up to about 17 million, which puts us at about 70% of our target. So as we move into the latter half of the ARPA period, we do expect that number 19 to continue to climb. Our counterparts at Deloitte, who have been excellent in facilitating technical assistance hours and kind of shepherding providers who are looking to submit transformation plans through that process and really helping to develop and shape some of those plans, continue that great work. So we're excited about that. That is currently where we stand. The ARPA period is set to wrap up in the first portion of 2025. So again, we do expect that number 19 to climb. And we're excited about some of the ambitious plans and the sheer scope of some of these transformation plans that we're receiving. Sarah, Joanna, Peter, I'll defer to you and see as to whether or not I missed anything in that review.
No, that was a great review. Thank you for doing that. As you can see, we are inching our way towards the goals, and we have heard it for other providers are out there, and it's taking them time because they're trying to work through what those plans will look like, and so we encourage that because we want to make sure that if they're going to do that, they do it right. Previous to this, we haven't thought about what will happen if we actually go over our goal number. And as we start inching closer, we need to start having a plan for that. So we're having conversations because there's 2 pieces to this: is the actual number of people, but there's also the dollar amount. And so we understand that what we're doing is allocating the money. That doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's going to spend all that money. And so at some point, the department may have to make the decision of whether to over allocate the dollars to make sure that we get to the goal of spending the 24 million. We're not there yet, but they're starting to have some discussions on what that would look like.
Gunnar Abrahamson from DDS. Any questions on that agenda topic? Any questions on the sheet that we had just reviewed regarding transformation plans? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on. Next on the list, we have a communications update and presentation by our counterparts at McDowell Communications. I know Rebecca Brockaway is on the call. Rebecca, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Gunnar. Becca Brockway, McDowell Communications Group. I'm here to give a brief overview on the communications endeavors that have been ongoing with DDS. The first is about the videos. 4 of the videos featuring individuals and families currently using one or more of the supports highlighted by the STEP initiative have been released. The 4 completed are supportive housing, individualized home supports, community companion homes, and self-directions. The videos are on the DDS website. They've been pushed out on social platforms and in newsletters. Hope everyone has had a chance to see those. The employment video is the next one that is being worked on, and it has been shot, and final edits are being made now, and hope that that will be released in the next few upcoming weeks. Assistive technology video will be shot in January. The individual has been identified, location has been identified, and the final video will be remote supports, and we're working with DDS right now to find out an individual that can be highlighted for the remote supports video. 2 op-eds have been completed, one from Commissioner Sheff on STEP overall, the videos, and what DDS has been up to. The other was from Minnie James. She is the CCH provider that was featured in the CCH video. That op-ed ran in the Hartford Courant this past Sunday as the featured story on the front page of the opinion section. And then we're currently working on an op-ed from the mother featured in the self-direction video. And that will go out to a paper that will be decided. The October and November newsletters went out through emails only, and that will be the same with the December newsletter, highlighting events, upcoming forums, and links that are new links, old links, to keep people updated. The next big thing is the surveys for the individuals and families. The first one went out last year, if you remember, back in December, January. And again, it will go out again to individuals and families this coming December, January. And the survey will be sent out in the mail, and individuals will have the option whether to complete it in a hard form and mail back in, or they can go online and fill it out there if that's what they prefer. There will also be an online Spanish version of the survey. And the survey is to see how people have heard about STEP, what they have heard about STEP, where the best places that they learned about this was, from whom or from what hard copies or website. There will also be a DDS employee survey as there was last year, which was sent out end of January, February, and that is just an email survey, and that will be the same this time around. We are also working on additional one-pagers. The one-pagers we did on, we worked with DDS on the 7 highlighted STEP supports, but also now going beyond that and working on some more that DDS has identified as supports and services that they want to highlight. And these are found on the website and also pushed out through the newsletters and social platforms. Gunnar, those are the main ones. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer.
Gunnar Abrahamson from DDS. Are there any questions for Rebecca? All right. Hearing none, Before we move on to the next agenda item, I would like to give a shout out to McDowell Communications. I think they've played an incredibly important role in assisting Lauren Gray, our communications manager, Kevin Bronson, our communications director, and really kind of helping to shape and articulate what it is we're trying to do with our STEP initiative. I can say that the one-pagers, these STEP videos have been an incredibly important tool in helping us tell that story. This is a very involved process that the department is undertaking. It is a chunk of that transformational change that we're after, and creating those kind of easy to use tools, those family friendly tools that folks can kind of look at and come away with a stronger understanding of what it is that we're after has been incredibly useful to us internally, and then those stakeholders that continuously interact with the department. So we appreciate your work, Rebecca, and Maura as well. So we'll move on. We have another one of our consultants who has played a pivotal role in helping us move STEP and ARPA forward, Deloitte Consulting. We have Betsy Bella with us today, who's going to give a quick presentation and overview. Betsy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Gunnar. All right, so on the STEP side, well, we already heard from Sarah and Gunnar related to the plans approved. And I just wanted to highlight again that we do know additional providers intend to submit, including plans both large and small. We highlighted for this group a few weeks ago, in development, a document summarizing submitted plans. We'll be coordinating with DDS to get that posted soon. We're just following up with a few providers to try to confirm permission to share their agency names with their plans. We presented this document, it's like a deck, to the ARCs and gathered feedback on STEP from them at the same time, especially what hesitancies providers still have. And we're holding a similar discussion with Alliance providers next week. TA sessions continue. They have been more sparsely attended, but we are seeing providers continue to take advantage of one-on-one TA. We are considering decreasing frequency of the office hours in 2024 to just focus on one-on-one technical assistance. We've been providing assistance both to providers with approved plans and those developing plans. So it's been, providers continue to share that they find the sessions really helpful, and that they appreciate being able to work things through with our team. And then we continue, of course, as necessary, coordinating up with DDS and making sure that there's consistent guidance, which then also frequently gets refined and put into the FAQs. And we will be distributing an updated calendar of topics for technical assistance with the plan summaries and an updated FAQ. So we've got draft outreach around that once everything is signed off on and posted to the provider gateway. The DDS staff working on STEP action items met yesterday to provide updates on progress. Progress continues to be made, not just in supporting providers and distributing incentives, but a lot of those other pieces that are in place to push STEP as a whole forward. So things like outreach and support to individuals and families, supporting relationships in the community, resources to improve employment options, assistive technology and remote supports. For example, the employment team collaborated to add new project search sites and is also working with school districts who are interested in joining as participating providers. So I know we often focus on the provider elements of STEP, but really as a reminder that there is the broader STEP plan where DDS is making a lot of momentum and work to create an overarching environment where this emphasis on independence and choice is seen across the board. So as we are preparing to lose some of our brave and fearless leaders on the STEP side, we are getting an early jump on our final report for the Deloitte support to DDS. At the same time, we will be developing a public version that is aimed at individuals and families so that they can get a sense of what's been some of the behind the scenes on STEP and where it's come out. We met last week with the self-advocate coordinators to get some of their input and feedback on, what kind of format would they most be interested to see and what content is of most interest to them. So we'll be moving forward with sort of a high-level summary of some of our work, but that also highlights some of that focus on what does STEP mean for the individuals who are participating, which is interesting since much of our work has been at the DDS and provider level, but it's important to recall that it's all focused on the individuals that we support and serve, right? Okay. Wynn had to leave to go to the Shared Living Committee meeting, and so I'll provide also an update on shared living. But first, any questions or comments around the STEP update? So on the shared living side, the efforts where we're supporting DDS to review the shared living supports kicked off in early October. We are working currently through Connecticut research and an environmental scan that looks at 3 other states. The idea here is to understand the current state of shared living in Connecticut, and then looking nationally at how other states structure their programs. So in Connecticut currently, there's actually only 5 people receiving shared living supports. So if people haven't heard much about the support, you don't have to feel bad, but we are looking to change awareness of it as things roll forward. So in addition to research in Connecticut and nationally, DDS has also established a shared living working committee. They're meeting bi-weekly to provide input and guidance on the path forward. And Mary Pat DiCarlo is leading that committee. So as part of the Connecticut research, we held 13 stakeholder interviews and a focus group with DDS staff, providers, and family members. The reason that individuals were not included in the interviews is they do not communicate using words, and their families opted for us to speak with the families instead. This did include an agency that stopped providing shared living supports, so we could really understand what some of the current challenges might be. We've also been looking at budget sheet data from participants and an analysis of some of the management information reports to consider, you know, as we think about the future of shared living, how large might the sort of group of folks who could be interested be? So we are drafting a vision for shared living. This is going to be an iterative process, moving back and forth with the committee, with us at DDS, to really help figure out sort of the future state for shared living. At this development stage, these are just internal initial documents. We conducted an environmental scan. So first there was a review of 6 states: Colorado, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Maine, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Many of these states were suggested by NASDS, the National Association for State Directors of Developmental Disability Services. And then we selected 3 states, DDS selected 3 states to focus on, and those are Maine, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. So the environmental scan includes spotlights about highlighting interesting approaches or promising practices, and those are actually being pulled from beyond those 3 states, as well as the states themselves. And then just like an overview of what does a similar service look like in those states? You know, how are they working through their waiver definitions, their administrative guidance, as well as an appendix that highlights some more of the details from the stakeholder interviews in Connecticut. In addition to coordinating with the Shared Living Committee, we're also coming up soon with meeting with the executive management team group to socialize some of the findings from the environmental scan and discuss potential paths forward. And then we are also going to be meeting with the ARPA residential committee so we can get some more insights from, since this is a residential support. So we'll be meeting with them as well. So coming up, socializing and gathering some input and feedback on the findings, and then coordinating with DDS and the committee to really figure out what the desired path forward is and use that to guide development of, ultimately we'll be providing an expansion roadmap. So I know that was a lot. We're in the busy kind of startup move and shake phase on shared living, but any questions there? All right, thank you.
Gunnar Abrahamson from DDS. Betsy, thank you for coming on and giving an overview of some of the initiatives and some of the focus that Deloitte has been working on. Much like McDowell, Deloitte has played an incredibly important role in aiding the agency in moving forward STEP and ARPA. we're really excited about the work that they're doing in conjunction with our shared living committee in moving that support option forward. So, I'm sure there'll be more exciting information to come on that front. But Betsy, always appreciate having you on the call.
Thank you.
Looking at our agenda. Next up is update on some of the transformational. Oh, Barry, I see you have your hand up. Barry.
So, hey, Gunnar. Barry Simon Oak Hill. Betsy, I don't know if you can answer this or not, or Gunnar, maybe you can. The shared living concept, where does that fit into the continuum of care in the transformation plan? And has there been discussion yet about what the rates would be for this particular level of care?
This is Betsy Bella from Deloitte. Interestingly, we found that currently the individuals being supported in shared living right now are very high need folks. So they are receiving 24/7 supports. They have high lawn levels. But what you necessarily sometimes see in other states is that shared living is more on sort of the other end of the continuum of supports, right? Where it might be part of how people are transitioning from the family home into their own individual home in this sort of temporary setting first. There's really a wide range. So one of the things that people keep highlighting that they love about shared living is that it is a flexible support that can be very person-centered, while at the same time, there are a lot of concerns about we need clearer guidance about what the support is. So it's how do we provide clearer guidance without losing all of the flexibility? And then on the rates question, DDS has specifically made the decision at this time as part of this piece to not look at rates. I think once they have aligned on and move forward into what is the planned end goal for shared living, what is the revised support look like, then down the line, of course, they'll need to look at rates.
All right, thank you.
Gunnar Abrahamson from DDS. Thank you, Betsy. And great question, Barry. I think, moving forward, we're going to have a little bit more guidance and a little bit more information to put out to this committee as to what that support is going to look like. I think one thing that the committee and the chair, Mary Pat DiCarlo, wanted to do was kind of go back to the drawing board and start from the ground up. That really would allow for kind of fresh thinking in how we want to frame the support option to allow for maximum flexibility, but also fit within our guidelines. So, we're hopeful that as the committee continues to meet, that this advisory committee can be updated as to the progress being made there, but still in the early stages. Any additional questions for Betsy? Any additional questions on some of the content that she covered? All right, hearing none, we'll move into the next agenda item. I am up, providing updates on transformational initiatives happening under ARPA. So let me pull up my notes here. Earlier on in the conversation, we had discussed some of the transformation plan specifics. We have 13 plans that are currently approved by the department, 5 that are pending approval. Betsy and Sarah had both made mention of this, but yesterday we met with our action step owners in conjunction with our private providers, Deloitte Consulting. We had developed a number of action steps that the department really wanted to see through that's going to move some of that transformational change that we're after forward. Some of the focal points of that, or the facets of that action step tracker, include a focus on bolstering our remote supports and assistive technology apparatus and equipment availability, outreach to individuals and families, which has been a large focus of McDowell Communications and our internal communications department. We have also undertaken a number of action steps that focus on providing and continuing to open up channels of communication with our private provider group that we work closely with in supporting the individuals that receive services through the department. There continues to be a lot of progress there. I think at one point it may be worthwhile to review some of the contents of that a tracker with this committee to give you a greater understanding of exactly what we're working towards. There are a number of specifics that I think are going to play an important role in moving us toward that goal of transformational change as we move into the latter half of the ARPA period. One thing that I'm not sure if all the committee members on this call are aware of, we did develop an incentive quick guide. So it's actually, I can go ahead and pull it up here. So it may take a minute to populate, but the STEP Incentives Quick Guide is really a useful tool for our private providers. It gives an overview of all the incentives available to those who submit transformation plans. It gives a brief description, and most importantly, it gives the incentive amount that provider is able to get a hold of if they meet those established criteria. So we were hopeful when we developed this that this would be a useful tool to our private providers as they continue to develop and submit their transformation plans for review and approval by the department. I know we have a number of providers on the call today. A focus of the Deputy Commissioner has been in particular the incentives tied to staff training on assistive technology and staff training on employment, job coaching, and job developers. I do want to quickly pull the private providers on the call. We have not received much participation, much interest in these two particular incentives here. And I think as a department, it's important for us to engage you to get an understanding of why that is. If you can offer any insights as to why maybe during submission of your transformation plan you didn't pursue those incentives, or maybe you've heard from communications or conversations with other providers why there isn't as much interest in those two training related incentives. Can anyone offer any insights there? Katie?
Yeah, Katie Bansaff from STAR. Staff shortages, just availability of staff to attend training. And yeah, that's the main thing. Staff are working so much overtime, and just trying to get them into training is a challenge.
Okay. Duly noted, and I think that's a conversation that's been ongoing, a concern that's been ongoing. Barry, Wynn, I know we have a couple other providers, same thing.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Yeah, and we're recovering from the last wave of DDS hiring our staff away and recruiting in new staff. So that's always an ongoing challenge while you guys are hiring. Depletes us.
All right, duly noted. Any additional comments? I did want to gather just a little bit of feedback, and I think those two responses are incredibly helpful as we kind of move forward and get an understanding of why that is. All right. We'll move on into some additional ARPA updates here in the world of assistive technology. We are continuing to develop an assistive technology evaluation and assessment RFP. The Operations Center continues to work on the contract for that RFP. We are targeting a completion date for that contract of January 1. We'll continue to keep this group updated if that date fluctuates. As a reminder, a vendor through this contract will be assigned as the preferred contractor to each region to assist individuals with evaluations and purchasing of assistive technology equipment. The vendors by region are as followed. For the North and the South, CIB is the preferred contractor. For Fairfield County, we have STAR. And for the remainder of the West region, we have Midstate ARC as that preferred contractor. Again, DDS is targeting a January 1st, 2024 contract completion date. I'm still kind of getting familiar with how often this committee meets, but if anything changes with that, I will ensure that you are updated next time we get together. Still in the world of assistive technology. Barry, go ahead.
Yeah, Gunnar, just to give you an update, as one of those contractors, we haven't heard boo from the department. So if you're targeting January 1, it may be, you may want to look into what's going on because we haven't heard anything.
All right, that's valuable feedback, Barry, and I apologize that there's been somewhat of a lapse in communication between the department and your agency. So that's something I can take back to Patricia and her team, look into, and I'll send you a follow-up email and we can connect offline on that. Any additional concerns, comments, questions there? Katie?
Oops. Yes, I would. Oops, I'm trying to get my camera back on. Sorry. Katie Banzaf from Star. Barry is one of the providers, also one of the vendors. We've been talking a lot with Patricia and trying to create or form how this system's going to work. If you could send me your lead person for the contract, we would love to engage in conversation prior, in addition to meeting with the department.
Yeah, Nicole Feeney.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. I appreciate that feedback. Additionally, in the world of assistive technology, we have about 100 DDS staff that are working towards completing an assistive technology course through California State University Northridge, or CSUN. I am partaking in that course, and it is quite laborious. There's a lot of legwork that needs to be done, but I think it's informative, and I think a lot of our staff are going to come away from that training with a better knowledge on assistive technology evaluations and assessments. And I think that'll better position not only the assistive technology division within DDS, but the agency as a whole, to continue to have conversations around AT, how it can be utilized, equipment availability, and really kind of support the department as assistive technology continues to expand as a service and support option. In addition to that, we do have 2 notice of opportunities currently out for assistive technology equipment. There is one out for individuals and families. There is one out for providers to take advantage of. And there is currently one that is being processed that's going to focus on day programs. In addition to that, an assistive technology and remote supports consultant is coming on board sometime in the month of January. That's a tentative date that we'll continue to keep this group updated on. But again, this is kind of one more resource that the department is going to utilize as we kind of expand our remote supports and assistive technology availability as a service option. The last item that I wanted to touch on around assistive technology is the AT&Me program. So I'm not sure if this committee has been updated on this previously, but the numbers of individuals that participate in the AT&Me program continues to climb. This program really focuses on pairing individuals with ID, with various pieces of equipment of assistive technology. They are trained on its use and applicability in various situations. The department has also provided a number of refresher trainings. And again, this is just kind of one piece of that puzzle in terms of getting individuals accustomed to and comfortable with the use of assistive technology if they deem it an appropriate support option. The last time we had an opportunity to check in with our assistive technology director, the number of individuals participating in that program stood at 27. I'm pleased to inform that the committee that number has climbed from 27 to 49. So we are seeing not only an increase in participation, but an overall interest or increase in interest and engagement. So we are excited about that. Some of my colleagues had touched on this previously. Moving on to Rewarding Work. Rewarding Work Employment Network is up and running. This is a portal that really focuses on individuals who are looking for staff. Those individuals can come and utilize Rewarding Work to set up job postings for, particularly those who self-direct their services. It's also a useful tool for individuals looking for employment. It's an opportunity or a portal where they can come in and submit their resumes. So it's somewhat of an interactive tool where both of those needs can really be met. The operations center and our communications division continue to kind of work on developing communication around the rewarding work network to really push its applicability for those who would see it as a useful tool. So we're excited about that. A couple other updates here. Our case management system. DDS has hired a project manager and a number of business analysts that are going to focus on developing the DDS case management system, what that's going to look like. The department has reviewed 7 states that currently have case management systems to see if DDS can use one of them. And they've narrowed it down to 2 different states. So really what we're looking for is we want to move this along quickly. So we're looking at something we can either purchase off the shelf that's going to kind of fit seamlessly with how our department currently operates, or look at some of those neighboring states that have similar systems that again can kind of be integrated seamlessly with how DDS currently runs. The idea behind kind of updating our case management system is really to kind of move away from that old way of doing things where a lot of the tools, a lot of the documents were all paper. The state moves slow, but we are moving. We're kind of shifting towards that digital focus. And this is going to allow various stakeholders that interact with the department to all access the same resources in the same location. So we're excited about that. And again, just like everything else, this committee will be kept up to date as to the progress being made there. Last on the list is our UA, or Universal Assessment. So DDS and DSS have decided to work with a vendor to see how all state agencies, particularly those that are health and human service focused, let me minimize this, can be brought on board with the concept of universal assessment, and to see how the system will fit within all those health and human services state agencies. So the idea there is if an individual approaches a health and human service agency, there is a uniform approach in how their level of need and eligibility is assessed. So put a hypothetical out there, an individual comes to DDS and undergoes the universal assessment. We get an understanding of what their needs are. And that universal assessment is really going to help us understand what health and human service agency is the best fit for them. So if they believe DDS is the one that's going to kind of best fit their needs, that UA can be utilized as a tool to kind of help frame that conversation with the individual, the family, as to what department is best going to serve their loved one. So we're excited about that, and this committee will be kept up to date on the progress being made there. That is the end of the ARPA initiative update that I have for this group. I know there were a lot of things I just kind of jumped through. Is there any questions, comments, concerns, feedback?
So feedback, nice job on your first meeting.
Thanks, Barry. I'm still, this was kind of a big shift for me. Being the commissioner's executive secretary was obviously a stellar opportunity for me, and transitioning into this new role, there was a lot of things that I needed to kind of get used to. I'm a pretty introverted person, so getting on these calls with a lot of you experts and giving updates and that sort of thing is certainly not my strong suit. But I got a great team around me. And Barry, I know you and I have spoken from time to time. All of you in the private provider community and those internal to DDS have really played an important role in me kind of learning the ropes. So appreciate that feedback, and hopefully things start to go smoother as we continue to meet on a regular basis. So that brings us, if there are no questions, to one of our remaining agenda items, discussion on future advisory committee direction. So as a lot of you know, the ARPA committees that were formed to help kind of guide and advise the department through the ARPA period have started to wind down. This is a committee that I think is going to play an important role as we move into the latter half of the ARPA period, as to the direction that the department should continue to take, modifications in our approach, And I really think that it is incredibly important that we continue to seek your feedback in what's working, what's not working, and what best practices we can continue to implement as we move forward. So I don't want to be the one that does the speaking here. I really want to turn it over to all of you and get an idea as to how you would like, outside of the regular updates we provide, how you would like this committee to continue to operate, if that's the appropriate way to frame it. Dr. Ellis?
Hi, I'm actually on a borrowed computer, so I have no camera. So I apologize for not being able to look you all in the virtual eyeballs, but
No worries.
wanted to ask a quick question around the data that's going to be collected, if we can talk about that and some of the diversity um, issues. I know I don't know what we're collecting in terms of data, in terms of diversity. So I was just wondering if we can have just a brief discussion about that at maybe a future meeting or a brief presentation.
Absolutely. Dr. Ellis, I think that's, certainly something we can take a look at. I know Sarah and Joanna, our research analysts, had briefly kind of delved into that, but I know Keith will make mention of that in the minutes, and that's something that we can add to the agenda next time. And Sarah and Joanna, we can have a conversation offline as to how we can kind of articulate what that looks like, because that is an important piece of this. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you. And I forgot to say this is Cheryl Ellis, Director of DEI at DDS.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. Gunnar Abrahamson, DDS. Want to circle back here real quick to my initial request for the committee. Barry.
So Barry Simon O'Kill. Gunnar, I guess for me, it's a base question on as an advisory committee, if we're just going to be a report out, or whether as an advisory committee, we're going to be looking at some of the work that's happening and trying to shape, what the transformed continuum of care is going to look like. And, what are some of these different little pieces that are being grappled with in the committees. As an advisory committee, are we like grappling with that kind of stuff, or are we going to remain, pretty much simply a report out committee?
Peter, before I answer Barry's question, did you have something to add? You did come on camera.
Yeah, I guess I'll put it this way. I think this committee can be shaped how the committee members want to shape it. We've asked over the last 6-8 months, what agenda items do people want? And we receive very little. So to do stuff that you want to do, Barry, which would be great, but we need some focus on our end as to what you're looking for, how you want us to present it, and stuff like that. I mean, for us, our way of doing it was to tell you this is all the stuff we're doing. But if you have a better way of how you want that brought up, discussed, I'm sure Gunnar would be more than willing to figure out how to do that. I just don't know how to structure that.
My suggestion would be to look at some actuarial data on how many people we see coming into the system, how many people are in the system, how many people we expect to be leaving the system, and then be looking at what capacity, in what kinds of services in a continuum that DDS would be wanting to would manage. And part of that is under the guise of, whatever the transformation is transforming to, identify the levels of care that the state, through its waiver process is willing to create rates for. And that ends up being the system that exists. And then it's just picking how many, in essence, approximately how many slots in each level of care does the system want? How much is the state willing to keep on a wait list? And how does the system manage going forward? That to me would be a really cool discussion that as an advisory committee, we could be grappling with.
I think we'll have to take that back with our data people to see what we can come up with in terms of that. I know we obviously know who we have now. We obviously know where they are now. We know the grads that are coming out. We know that. We should probably be able to get a good estimate of what the emergencies would look like in addition to that. I guess one of the things that I would be thinking about is, would we know how successful something's going to be? So if I take, for example, supportive housing, and how many people will actually want to move there or would be successful for that. I don't know if we have that data because we're so new into it. So I would try to figure out how would we be able to project something like that. I mean, the idea of the ARPA initiative was to try to develop more alternatives for people to be able to experience community life in a different way. And, you know, when you just look at assistive technology, that changes almost on a daily basis. What come out of it is just amazing. So how do you project something like that? You know, it's and I don't want to sit there and say, everybody's in a group home now, so they'll be in a group home tomorrow. That's not going to happen. But I don't know if everybody's going to move into supportive housing. So I'm just trying to figure out what you would be looking for in terms of us to start shaping that.
Well, I guess two things. One is I wouldn't let perfection be the enemy of the good. You're going to have, best practice, promising practice kinds of services. And you guys better than anybody know I'm going to harp on, let's create some services and get some rates. And then that will dictate, how the system, how many slots there are, how many, how much service is available. Given the movement that you want, you can manipulate the system by virtue of rates and drive people towards whatever it is that you want in the system, but it's your system to manage. So from that standpoint, you can artificially move people in whatever direction you want by virtue of that, but you're taking into consideration what the people's needs are and what people are out there. So you, again, using some, and I'm guessing the Deloitte people would probably know better than I, what kinds of actuarial information is out there that could be used to be helping, just regular insurance companies know approximately how much of what they need, and then use that kind of data analysis to be looking at what kinds of population you're going to be looking at for what kinds of services are out there. And that's where, as a committee, we could be grappling with all that data in ways that could be helping to shape. And then it's really a policy decision on how much the state wants to fund it and how much the state is willing to accept a wait list. And whatever that is, those are the parameters that we operate with. And then you create the system out of whatever the transformed services are. But as an advisory committee, we could do that, or we could, listen, as we've done, we can, and you've described it. You can tell us everything that's going on, and that's great. I just think you have a lot more resource here that could be used.
I guess I think it's a yin or yang thing here. And I say that because rates obviously drive the system for providers, obviously. That doesn't necessarily mean it drives the system for what the individuals want. And so if we want to make this, we would have to make some decisions of if we want to promote one service versus another by increasing the rates. In essence, we would then be steering people to that. Now, whether that's a good thing or bad thing statewide, I don't know.
No, but
I think how we would present this to DDS as a large may be very difficult because everybody talks about individual choice, and if we're changing rates to move people in one direction versus another, then where does choice come in? So,
well,
and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying this is
no.
yeah,
To me, and to me, it's a balancing act. I know I throw out there, just because I have heartburn doesn't mean I get to choose. I want open heart surgery. You get the service that's appropriate to the level of whatever your issue is that you're trying to deal with. So, saying that everything has to be choice isn't necessarily where things need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's enough acknowledgement in the system. And I, say, for instance, if you wanted more in-home supports, then acknowledging that, that the system has grappled with rates on in-home supports and or supported the SLA stuff, that there's been an acknowledgement that the rates are right on the edge of what some providers can or can't do. But if you want more of it, then dealing with the rate issue will get you more of it, and will in fact then give people more choice to go into that service if more of it exists.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on how and what your view on choice is, in that if there's a system of providers out there, then people should be determined what's the appropriate level of care, and then they can choose where they want to go get that care, as long as there's an open amount of service out there. So it's how you view what does choice mean for people choosing what they want, and whether a level of need assessment allows for an acknowledgement of just how much is appropriate for a person to get, and then they can go out into the system and find a provider that has that available. But you're not going to get that available if the rates don't create enough vacancies for whatever that service is. So, but again, I go back to the base for me is figuring out what are the options in what can in the continuum, and do the rates actually support the regulations around that kind of service? And if so, then how much of it do you want to make available so that people can choose it?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I was just trying to understand where you were coming from.
Yeah, so hopefully that helps.
It does. So we can kind of take this back, throw some stuff together and try to figure out where that would look. And then, bring it back to the committee and see if this is what we're talking about and how does this work, and I think we'll definitely will need some data people to help us out. So fortunately we have Sarah here, and we have Deloitte hanging out there with us as well, and Joanna's there as well, Johanna. So we've got a number of people, so hopefully we can try to see what we can bring for data. I think the conversations will be fascinating. Too bad I won't be part of it, but they'll be fascinating. Does anybody else have any ideas of what they would like to see this committee? Cheryl, in terms of the diversity issue, how about other people? I think Tracy's got her hand up. Tracy, what did you have to say?
I didn't have my hand up, but I'm in total agreement with Barry, and I've been saying for years that we need to take an actuarial approach to figuring out how much of what is needed at what point in time. And so if we could move that forward, I'd be all for it.
Any additional feedback, comments, ideas on how we want to not repurpose, but move this advisory committee forward as we move into the new year? All right, hearing none, we are at the tail end of our meeting here. So our next meeting, let me make sure I get the date right here, is set to occur December 19th. And with that, let me see if I can do this properly. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, this meeting is adjourned. I appreciate everyone's engagement. I hope you have a wonderful holiday, and we'll see you December 19th.
Thanks,
Happy
Gunnar.
Thanksgiving,
Happy Thanksgiving,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Happy Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.
Thank you, folks.
What am I doing? Hold on. Why is she still there?